Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. So today I was going to go see Leap, which you can barely see the poster for up there, but it is there. Unfortunately, for some reason, our theater dropped that one relatively quickly, so it's gone. Missed it. Sorry. If it pops up over at the Dollar Theater, I'll probably go watch it there, but that's probably unlikely considering how much of a backlog I have to catch up on right now. So instead today, I went and saw something I don't actually have a poster for, surprisingly. Birth of the Dragon. This is WWE Studios' take on a story about Bruce Lee. So basically, back when Bruce Lee first started teaching his style of martial arts to Western society, to Americans, to white people, whatever you want to call it, there was a grandmaster who came from overseas and met with Bruce Lee, and they ended up having kind of a duel, if you will. It's kind of like a sparring exhibition, but a little bit more full contact than just sparring. And it was never really determined who won the fight. It was always just kind of left up in the air. And it's something that's barely touched on if you watch something like Dragon the Bruce Lee Story or any other Bruce Lee movies. It pops up occasionally here and there, but it's kind of a small part of everything. So this is basically WWE Studios giving their take on what led up to that fight, what happened as a result of that fight, and so on. So really there's not much more to say about the film other than that. We meet Bruce Lee, who at first, he's kind of the cocky, arrogant movie star, which Bruce Lee never really, he was cocky and arrogant, but it wasn't to a fault. It was his style of humor. He would joke around with people and act a little cocky, and that was his way of, joking around with people, but he was always humble. He wasn't really the way they portray him in this film. But basically, he's kind of got the big head, I'm a movie star type of thing going on in this movie. And when the other martial artist comes from overseas, he goes, oh, he's here to spy on me, and is like really paranoid about the whole thing, and asks to meet with him, and the guy's like, no, I'm just here to wash dishes, And it turns out that in this story, he lost his temper during an exhibition and injured someone, and he was sent to New York to wash dishes to basically pay a penance and get his spirit back into peaceful alignment to where he doesn't succumb to that type of anger anymore. But Bruce still thinks that he's there to spy on him, even though he's basically like, no, I'm just here to do my penance and I don't really care what you're doing. And Bruce, still overly paranoid, keeps challenging him, acts like a total dick to him, which, again, that's not Bruce Lee. That's not how he would have acted, at least not from the portrayals I've always seen of Bruce Lee. But he just keeps going after the guy, going after the guy, going after the guy, until the guy finally says, okay, fine, we'll have our fight. Then they just kind of have the fight, and then mid-fight they just kind of stop and bow to each other, and everyone's like, well, who won? Because the underground Chinese mafia in Chinatown was placing bets on the fight of who would win, and they can't pay out unless they know who won, and neither one of them will say who won. So then the mob comes after them, so then they team up to fight off the mob, and it basically comes down to them finally agreeing on a winner, and the mob kind of be like, okay, we'll leave you guys alone now. So, yeah, overall, it's a bad portrayal of Bruce Lee. It doesn't do his teaching or who he was any credit. Honestly, if this was a portrayal of Bruce Lee we had saw back when Bruce Lee was first becoming really popular in the States, it probably would have turned a lot of people off to him, and people probably would have believed this was real and that he was really this much of a jerk when he wasn't. So I'm kind of glad this came out now after the whole Bruce Lee bubble has kind of popped and not really that many people are as heavily into martial arts and stuff as they were in the mid to late 90s. Martial arts had a big boom at that point, and it still exists, but it's not quite as heavy as it was back then, mostly because a lot of the action films now use a lot of wire work and fighting techniques that are very similar to what we had back in the 80s and 90s with the martial arts films. So it's basically just kind of something we see every day now, so it's not really as intriguing as it was back then, I guess you could say. But yeah, really not a lot to say about this film. What would I give as far as a star rating? Overall, it wasn't a bad concept, but like I said, it's just the way they portrayed Bruce Lee in the film just doesn't really match any of my knowledge of who Bruce Lee was or how he carried himself. So because of that, I'm going to knock it down to like a 2.5. Basically, it's a middle-of-the-road film. There was potential for a good story there, but just really poor execution and really poor writing. So yeah, I guess 2.5. Not much else to say about it than that. So again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are down in the description. Click the bell next to the subscribe button so you get notifications every time I post new content. And until next time, I'll see you after the credits.